Okay. All right. In compliance with notification requirements of the Ohio's open meeting law under COVID-19 emergency declaration, notice of this meeting has been published. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. During the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Abstentions from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting have the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raise your hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raise your hand feature can be found in the participant panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon again and mute your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen.
Yeah, I did it. I don't know why it's taking so long. It's not showing up?
Yeah, there it is now.
I see it.
All meeting activity is being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. We have provided a link to the meeting for those who wish to speak on a particular case via our website and email. We have received emails from those who have provided written comment on a particular matter. Mr. Chairman, the meeting is yours.
Thank you, Michael. Call the roll, please.
Bowen,
Yes, present.
Downing,
Present.
Fluker, I didn't hear you, August. I'm sorry.
Present.
Okay, thank you. Curry,
Present.
Hall, stop me again. I didn't hear you. I see that you're here though. Okay, and Slife. Let's see. Okay, Mr. Chairman, we do have a quorum.
Sorry, I just froze. Present.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Life might be at budget hearings, I'm guessing.
I did get a text from him last night that he would be probably in budget hearings, correct?
Okay, great. So we're going to go out a little out of order. We're going to do some design review first, just because we lacked a quorum last time. So we're going to take them first. The first one is in Euclid Corridor Design Review. It's proposed demolition of a 3-story former commercial building attached to a warehouse, seeking final approval under Codified Ordinance 341-08. And who's here for the?
Looks like we have John Wagner.
I am
John,
here.
is there anyone else with you, John?
I believe Aaron Brooker and Kevin Belt from Signet are here as well.
Are they on the line?
Yes.
Okay. Could you please raise your right hands and repeat after me? Or do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer under perjury?
I do.
I do.
Mr. Chairman, this is August.
Yes.
I must recuse myself. Thank you.
Thanks, August. Okay, so you have a number of demolitions in a design review. So we're going to take them one at a time, but you'll stay sworn in for the whole time. So go ahead.
Mr. Chair, if it's okay with you, can I make the entire presentation? It's all sort of combined together. And then afterwards, you can vote on each individual case. I think it's important for everybody to see.
Yeah, I think we want to see the design afterwards too. That's great.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Great. This is the proposed development it's called Midtown Housing. It's located on Euclid Avenue, or between Euclid Avenue and Carnegie, between 71st and 77th. It's the old Junior J site. For those of you who are familiar with that area, used to be a big lion out in front, was the Coliseum in front of the Sullivan house. I have made this presentation numerous times to various groups, so I may go rather quickly, so feel free to stop me at any point. We've made a conscious effort to meet with neighborhood groups such as planning, landmarks, Midtown numerous times, the neighborhood block group, as well as some neighborhood stakeholders like Dick Pace, who owns Baker Electric, and Ron Calhoun, as well as Jamie DeRosa from the city of Cleveland. We've also taken the opportunity to give tours of the Sullivan house, because I know it's a point of contention to the folks at Landmarks, people from Chief Ripka's office, the Cleveland Restoration Society, and then a random group of Instagram photographers that are looking to take photos of a vintage Pac-Man machine. Have no idea where that came from. This is an overall aerial. You'll see the site highlighted in red. Obviously, there's a lot of great new stuff going on in Midtown, including the future home of the Cleveland Foundation. And this site is located, just east of Dick Pace's Baker Electric, and to the west of the Pearl Development Church Square Commons. Next slide, please. Here's an aerial of the site. On your right is Euclid Avenue. On the sort of upper left is Carnegie. Next slide. Here you see the boundary of the site defined, as well as the 5 buildings that we are looking to demolish. I'm going to go through each one of those sort of individually, but more focused on the Sullivan house, which is up on Euclid Avenue. I'd like to take a moment and sort of talk about its siting and its relationship to Euclid. It's sort of awkwardly located in this sort of missing tooth between Church Square Commons and Iron Mountain, which is the building just to the large complex just to the west of it, and sitting in sort of a sea of rubbled concrete. Next slide, please. At the request of Michael, we put together a quick diagram showing each of the buildings and the properties they're located on, just for purposes of your motions, just so you can see which. There's numerous properties, obviously, that will be consolidated in the future, but currently some of those buildings sit on 2 to 3 parcels. Next slide, please. So the Sullivan house, there is a group of folks that would like to save it. It is a historic home, and we feel strongly that the house, while it does have intrinsic value, it is the site is better utilized based on the development plan that we've come up with. We are not asking to demolish the Sullivan house today. We have spoken with Carl from Landmarks. We have spoken with Jamie DeRosa, as well as some neighborhood stakeholders, including Midtown, who are working currently on a plan to relocate the house. The house, as it currently stands, is in tough condition. Siding is rotting, windows are missing, they're broken. It's fairly dilapidated on the outside. It has not been maintained in 15 to 20 years. And the first time, when we presented this to design review, this is I think the first time I've ever had a client who's bought the house as is, and hasn't been the cause of the dilapidation. The property itself comes with some challenges. It sits on a raised plinth, as well as an elevated porch, making sort of adaptive reuse very difficult. If we were to try and turn this into amenity space for the residential development or some sort of use other than a home.
It looks like someone's living there.
nobody lives there right now.
Okay.
When you see the inside, you'll understand why. The house itself, where it's currently sited, doesn't really work on the property. But moving it, which is a large undertaking, pun intended, is also very difficult given its location. Carnegie Avenue to the south, full of electrical lines, not to mention bridges at 55th and the sky bridges at the Cleveland Clinic, sort of limits our options in terms of relocating the house off the property. The Euclid Avenue redevelopment with the median poses its own challenges, but we're working with a house mover to sort of come up with a plan to see if we can relocate this to one of the historic districts across the street. Next slide, please. The next couple slides are just some images of the home and the exterior. It's obviously in tough shape, but it has some pretty cool details. Next slide, please. Again, more images of the outside, the front porch, some of the broken windows and missing details. But really what I'm gonna focus on is the next slide, is the inside. While at this point we're not asking to demolish it, we're going to go through a process with the city of Cleveland, with Midtown, to see if it's even feasible to move it. When we come back for final design approval, we may ask for permission to demolish it at that time, if no resolution can be made in terms of getting it off the property from an economic and a feasibility standpoint. If that is the case, we intend to salvage some of the materials from the inside and reuse them in our project, including doors and some trim, a fireplace mantle, maybe some of the paneling from the stairs. Signet has often asked me to remove this picture from our presentation because it makes it look pretty good. I thought it was important to show some of the details that we plan on saving should the house need to be demolished. But trust me, next slide, please. Most of the rest of the house looks like this. It has been gutted. It has suffered from water leaks and looting. It is in really tough shape. Next
Hey,
slide,
John,
please. Yeah.
When you come back, it might be good to have an inventory of things you would save.
Absolutely. While we're going through our due diligence, we've had a contractor price out restoring the house to historic standards. They've come up with a budget of $2.7 million. While I think that number is probably spot on, it might be a little less, and you won't get much argument from me if you think that that number is too high. But they're doing that based on no drawings and no plan at this point, other than restoring the house back to a home. We've also looked at moving costs, including moving it 1/4 mile at $375,000, and then building a new foundation on another piece of property. Signet is interested in moving and preserving the home. They are willing to contribute some of it, some financial backing to get the home relocated, should that be a possibility. And there are lots of other things that come along with that we need to make sure are in place in terms of who's going to own the home and what it's going to be and who's going to maintain it, should it not just be sold as a single family home. Next slide, please. So these are the back buildings. They're sort of various states of disrepair, nondescript sort of old warehouse buildings, missing windows, collapsed roofs, nothing of a historic sort of significance, but they are a safety concern with people going in and trying to salvage stuff out of them or living in them, that we would like to bring these buildings down as quickly as possible. Next slide shows the interior of those, sort of various very typical warehouse buildings, concrete slabs, steel and concrete frames, nothing of sort of note in there other than a lot of dirt, debris, and unsafe conditions. Next slide, please. So now we're going to talk about the redevelopment. The site is just under 6 acres. Again, Euclid Avenue is on the right, Carnegie Avenue is on the left. At the top of the property is the Iron Mountain facility. And then on the lower portion, which would be to the east, we have the Church Square residence, as well as the Cleveland Food Hub and Aldi's. Next slide, please. So the redevelopment looks to take advantage of this large property and the potential connections between Euclid Avenue and Carnegie. We are looking at a residential development in a 2-phase approach. The first phase would be the buildings on the right, which are labeled buildings 1, 2, and 3. They amount to 160 residential units. From a site and design standpoint, we felt it's important to line Euclid Avenue in that area of blue, which is residential amenity space, including fitness rooms, leasing, common lounge areas, as well as some actual leasable retail space right at the corner. The main sort of design move we put in was a new street. There is no connection north-south between 71st and 77th. We felt that this was a great opportunity to create a new connection. This will be a private street, but it will be designed and function much like a public street with on-street parking, sidewalks, street trees, including an internal green space for the residents and sort of park-like setting. And we have brought the buildings up to the street edge and tucked all of the parking behind. The future phase, currently we're showing the same residential type buildings, but we're in discussions, and as the market, as we build out the first phase, we're going to take a look at the market and see whether or not, maybe more family housing or for sale or a townhome product, or potentially partnering with, the Cleveland Food Hub to provide more retail space for some of their smaller organizations that are working out of the Food Hub to provide, small retail spaces. There's a potential for an office component. Obviously, we will be back as sort of that development part of it unfolds. But as part of this first phase, we will be putting in the street from Carnegie to Euclid. Next slide, please. So the next few slides are sort of floor plans and building plans. The buildings are made up of 4 different unit types: a micro unit, a studio, a 1-bedroom, and a 2-bedroom. Next slide, please. And they are put together in a series of 3-story walk-ups, where we have front doors on the street, as well as access to the parking from the rear. Each stair, or pod as we call it, will have 12 units. So you will get to know, it will become sort of a neighborhood within the neighborhood within the neighborhood. You'll get to know your neighbors really well because you'll have 12 people sort of sharing an entrance. Next slide, please. As you go up the floor, we eliminate the extra hallway because you're up in the air, and we use that space to create larger units, the 1-bedrooms and 2-bedrooms. Each of those enter out into that single stair. Next slide, please. So this is an aerial view showing development, or at least the first phase of the development. The future phase on your left is sort of masked out, just to give you a general idea of how the development would feel. From an architectural standpoint, we took a look at, sort of that missing type of design that was once very prevalent in Midtown. I'm thinking back to like the Knitting Mills building, the idea of these old warehouse buildings and tried to incorporate that as well as add a mix of new and modern into the design elements. So we have the building that is the L-shaped building that is where the retail and the amenity space fronting Euclid. As you turn the corner into the new street, the buildings, you can see the buildings and the front doors lining the street with the on-street parking. Currently, we're looking at sort of a mix of materials, and I'll get into those as we get to the elevations and perspectives of the building. But there will be some variety between each of the buildings. But what you'll see in the perspectives is all of this is all based on the notion of the red brick with the charcoal. Just keep in mind that we will be making changes to each building as we start to develop the design further. Next slide, please. So these are the elevations. This is the Euclid Avenue building. Up on top is the Euclid Avenue elevation. You can see a large glass storefront down at the pedestrian level. And then, sort of that right side takes, sort of very much in keeping with that warehouse style of, big, large gridded windows and punched openings in a field of masonry. And then we started to introduce these more modern elements made out of corrugated metal and larger sort of casement style windows at the sort of corner piece, as well as coming down the street. We looked at, those elements that were prevalent in these warehouses, and we tried to be very, sort of strict in keeping with that style in the brick areas. And then we looked at ideas of sort of those sawtooth roofs, and we wanted to incorporate that, but use that in the modern way, which sort of harkens to these sort of townhome looking pods that sit at the corner, as well as the bay windows. And I realize you guys can't see my mouse moving across the screen as I point to things. The bay windows that go down the street, sort of tucked under that eave line. Next slide, please. The backs of the buildings currently have the same design characteristics, same materials. I bring this up because we are currently going through a budgeting pricing exercise. And as I always think projects are going to come in budget. Contractors always tell me they're not on budget. And these are areas that we may have to look to maybe reduce some masonry and introduce some more metal. But currently we're looking to keep the design consistent all the way around. But more to come when we come back for final design. Next slide, please. And then the next couple slides are just some images of each of the buildings. This is, again, the building on Euclid. From sort of an aerial standpoint, seeing the retail storefront, the warehouse feel up against Euclid with that sort of modern pod piece that sits on top of the retail component. Next slide, please. Again, some more images of the same building. Next slide, please. And I won't spend a lot of time. These are buildings 2 and 3. They are made up of the same unit types, the same types of building construction. You can see the sawtooth bay windows, as I mentioned earlier, in these floor plans. Next slide, please. Again, we're consistent design throughout these buildings. We think there's an economy of scale using this type of brick and the same windows, but we will be changing up material palettes. Changing colors of brick and changing colors of siding per building to get a little bit more variety in the development. Next slide, please. An image of the interior buildings. I believe this is building 2 sitting on that park, which obviously needs some design refinement. But as we start to progress this project, we will look to activating that park space completely. Next slide, please. Again, another image of the same building sitting on But you can see the new street with the street trees and the on-street parking. We think that will be fantastic for guests or folks coming to be able to park and utilize that retail space up on Euclid Avenue, and potentially the future retail down on Carnegie. Next slide, please. So last images take a look at how this development impacts the frontage on Euclid Avenue. There's the lion that I mentioned at the Coliseum of the Alan Sullivan House. And you can see how the house sits elevated off the street and sort of awkwardly set back from Euclid Avenue, and awkwardly in between the Iron Mountain building and the residence of Church Square. The lower bit image is the area where we would like to cut this new street in. We think this will be a real benefit to the folks who live in Church Square, because they will be getting more landscaping, a tree-lined street, a sidewalk, as well as an animated streetscape right outside their windows. Next slide, please. So these are some images that are befores and afters of the Euclid Avenue frontage. The top one is existing, how it sits today, and the bottom one is the siting of the new proposed development as it would be in the future. Next slide, please. And then I'll stop here. This is the last image. This is again Euclid Avenue looking west at the intersection of Euclid and that new street with the retail and the plaza, and sort of the mix of traditional warehouse and modern architecture.
Thank you. Hey, John, since we got to go take these one by one, if you can go back to the images that show each one of the buildings so you can kind of point out which one we're talking about at the time.
Okay, I think the best place to go is the aerial at the beginning, maybe? Because I'm not 100% sure on which building sits on which property, or which building is which agenda item.
Okay, and I'll use the address and then you can show us which one it is. Okay?
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we do have Lillian with her hand raised.
Next to the warehouse, and it is 7218 Euclid.
So I believe that's the building that's the Alan Sullivan house with the warehouse behind it.
Okay, so it's the former 3-story commercial building. So hey, Michael, if that's the Sullivan house, are we just doing the warehouse, or are we doing the commercial building too?
I've put a note here on my notes excluding the Alan Sullivan house due to the presentation that Mr. Wagner gave. So I would say it's just the attached warehouse building on item number 1.
Okay, so commission members, that would be with stated amendment, understanding it's not including the, I guess it's 7218 Euclid, which is the Sullivan house. So that's what I would look for in approval, excluding the Sullivan house.
I move approval excluding the Sullivan house. Lillian has her hand raised, though.
I'll second that. I just had I think the project's great. I actually really like the direction of the architecture a lot. I think it's quite nice. My question is, as you head between here and final approval, for me, I would ask that if it's possible to consider in the site plan and the parking, and I understand since you're doing walk-ups and trying to have parking to keep the pricing down on these units for workforce housing, but it is a bit of a sea of parking. And so is there a way to possibly work with the sewer district or others to have some partial components of the parking lot be permeable, and to really think about a combination of plaza and parking? Maybe it's not the whole thing for cost purposes, But since it's garden style amongst parking, it also could potentially feel more like a place than buildings sitting in a parking lot. And so I love the project. I just wanted to, ask that maybe you do some further consideration of how this large site can also be a place with thinking about that. And I second the demolition.
Okay, we have a motion and a second and a comment attached to it. Further discussion. Michael, call the roll, please.
Bowen,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes. Yes.
Okay, motion carries. The next one is a proposed demolition of a one-story warehouse building seeking final approval. Which one is this one, John?
Which parcel is that? Is it listed as a parcel?
815-029.
So that's the old car wash at the Carnegie Avenue area.
Okay, I see it. Commission members, do you see that?
Yeah, I move approval.
Second.
Motion second, further discussion. Call the roll, please.
Bowen,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. The next one is a proposed demolition of a one-story former warehouse building with penthouse addition. And this is 118-15-007. 007.
So that's the property right in the middle.
Okay, gotcha. Everyone see that?
Yes, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Call the roll, please.
Bowen,
Yes.
Downing. Diane.
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Motion carries. The next one is a proposed demolition of a one-story warehouse building with an attached office area. This is 118-15-014. 014.
It's the lower left.
Yeah.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion second, further discussion. Call the roll, please.
Bowen,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Motion carries. The next one is the schematic design approval. So this is for schematic.
I'll move approval, but with my comment that they explore the site plan a little bit from kind of looking at stormwater and different methods for making the parking lot kind of addressing some of the quantity of asphalt.
Okay.
I'll second it, but just want to make sure it continues to exclude the Allen House.
Gotcha. Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Call the roll, please.
Bowen,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Stami.
Yes.
Motion carries. Lot consolidation, lot split, permanent parcel number 007-07-155. Who's here for this? This is at 3525 Siam Avenue.
Looks like we have Byron from Cleveland Bricks.
Byron, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm on the line.
All right, go ahead, please.
Okay, so we have, thank you, commissioners, first of all. We have a parcel, a large parcel next to the cemetery over on the corner of Siam Avenue and Japan Court. And right now, it's a rather large lot, as you can see. And there's a single house on it, kind of tucked up there in the corner that's currently in use. And so if we could go to the next slide. I don't know how easy it is for everybody to see that. Is it possible to zoom in?
No, I can't really zoom in easily.
I can see it though.
Everybody, if you want to zoom in personally, there should be a bar on your left-hand side of your screen that will allow you to personally zoom in anywhere you want on the screen.
Okay. All right, so it's our proposal for 3 additional houses back there. As you can see on the left, where it says parcel C4, is a north-south facing house with the frontage on Siam. And then the parcel C3 is kind of a horizontal style house. And then C2 is the same style house. It's just facing a slightly different direction. And our goal is that there's also going to be a single car garage added to the existing house. And they're all going to have access from the same motor court. As if you can see there, it's kind of outlined there in the green line. And I have a better drawing later in the presentation. I think you can go to the next slide. It should be good. So that's this is the design for the rear houses. It's got the porch on the front. The difference is for the south and westernmost house, we are going to extend the porch all the way across for more pedestrian recognizability, I think was the term that HDRS used, so that the first thing they see isn't quite so the garages. And then this is the design that's going to be facing away from the cemetery on the southeast corner of the lot. And you can go to the next slide. That's just the floor plan. You can go to the next slide. This is the frontage of the house that's going to be off of Siam. Pretty basic, I think. And again, it just differs from the others in that the front obviously is the narrow end of the house instead of the wide. And you can go to the next slide. And just more floor plan, and you can go to the next slide, please. So this is the lot itself. As you can see, there's nothing there really right now. We're going to remove that fence. A little zoomed in. Yeah, so you can see the front of the house that's already there. We're gonna try and match as best as possible, but again, the frontage is going to be off the front porch for that Siam house, kind of where those tire tracks are that you can see, and then it's like a panoramic photo, so I'm sorry if it's a little weird. And then those 2 houses will be in the back, and then there is some plans for a little bit of private green space. The layout of the houses was planned as such so that there is a little bit of green space available. You can go to the next slide.
I mean, it could kind of help, creating some topics for discussion.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear anything. Somebody was talking to me.
I think that was just background chatter. Go ahead.
Okay. So on the left-hand side is the architectural site plan. So Again, it doesn't show the extended porch on the rear left-hand house where it has the M label. But again, we are going to extend that porch all the way across the front. And there's some landscaping that's been proposed. We were working with HDRS to kind of come up with some ideas to kind of make it more pleasurable for pedestrians as they walk into the motor court. And so there's going to be a stamped concrete pedestrian walkway that goes to each front door in the back. And again, just some landscaping in there to dress it up a bit. And on the right-hand side, none of the colors have been set in stone yet. But that's just kind of a 3D rendering of the houses, kind of where they sit. It's kind of crude, obviously, and it only has the houses. It doesn't have the existing house or anything. Probably would have been better if that was a street view, but that's just like a kind of a rough idea. And I think that's the last slide. So pretty basic. We're just trying to, and I'm sorry, if you could go back to the second slide. What we're asking for today is approval for the lot split as shown. Yeah, this one. Where you see the blue lines, they're a little unusual.
So do you have a cross ingress and egress easement that would be attached to this?
Yes.
Okay, staff would need to see that and agree with that.
I have all that. I just received it from Riverstone just a couple days ago before I made the presentation. So I'd be happy to send that for you guys to take a look at.
Yeah, staff can review it. Commission members?
Yeah, this is August. I'm not, I guess I'm having problems understanding how this fits into the neighborhood. And because obviously I understand what they're trying to do here, but I just don't know how it relates to the adjacent properties in the neighborhood at all.
Well, all the houses, we've designed them based on things that we've done in the neighborhood in the past. We were on board with HDRS. They approved the designs almost right away, barring the porch extension in the back.
I understand to the applicant, Mr. Chairman, but you're asking this body to render an opinion and we have no context. I have no way of knowing how this works or doesn't work or feel. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I don't have enough information to render an opinion.
Hey, Byron, what August is asking for, we normally see, is like an aerial that shows kind of all the other residential or the buildings around it. So we can observe setbacks and stuff like that, how it fits. Some pictures looking down the street so we can see, you know, kind of the character of the street. And obviously we don't see any of that.
Okay.
Other commission members?
Okay. Well, you can get those together.
May I ask that we table this? I would move to table this to allow the applicant to demonstrate how this fits into the context of the neighborhood.
Okay, so you're motioning to table.
Yes, I said I'd move. Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay, so there's a motion to table. Let's make it to date certain the next week, because by the next meeting, because by then you'd be able to have pictures and aerials, and then you'd also have your ingress and egress easement that could be reviewed by staff. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
A motion and second. Further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Bowen,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker. Sorry, August, I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Curry,
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Please get everything together so we have a better understanding of the context. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to staff and they can help you with that.
Okay.
The permanent parcel number 00926-019. This is 4527 Broadview Road. Who's here for this one, please?
Rick Bucklow.
All right, go ahead.
Jeff Rusby from OBCDC as well.
Okay, what I'm looking to do here is there's two buildings on one parcel. What I'd like to do is just split them in two and off the front part and keep the back. I'm a interior remodeler, and I'd just like to keep the building for my own personal property, leftover material and the car lift in there, just do my own little maintenance and storage.
So which building are you keeping and which building are you selling? This back building is the one you're keeping?
The 4527, the building in the front, I would like to sell, and then the one in the back is the one I'd like to keep.
Okay, great. And they both have street access to parking?
Yes.
Commission members, questions?
I move to approve as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion second. Further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, we have Jeff from Old Brooklyn with his hand raised.
Jeff from Old Brooklyn, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Old Brooklyn CDC and Councilman Brancatelli object to the lot split. It's a use that is non-conforming with the rest of the residential uses surrounding it. Furthermore, we've had a variety of complaints from surrounding neighbors going on a few months now, including to the Department of Building and Housing regarding the use. We would object to it. We'd be happy to meet with the property owner, try to get in touch with the property owner unsuccessfully. We'd be happy to meet with the property owner, but as it stands, as it's presented, we would object to it.
So it's not zoned properly for his use, so he wouldn't be able to get a occupancy. Is basically what you're saying.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, we also have Molly.
Mr. Chairman, I'm a little confused. So the use doesn't exist now? I'm not clear about, or does it exist? You have exception to that it exists. I'm not sure what your point is, Jeff.
I believe Molly, Molly Ferris from Councilman Brancatelli's office might be able to confirm. I believe it is zoned local retail or limited local retail, which would not allow the kind of repair work that's happening in the property.
So it's a non-conforming use currently. And it has nothing to do with the lot split. I'm trying to understand this, I guess.
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay, thank you. I just need to understand.
Yeah, so we're not approving or disapproving use. We're approving or disapproving a lot split. So if they have a use that's not allowed, we don't know if it's grandfathered in, not grandfathered in. That's not in front of our board right now, and it's not under our preview. That's building and housing. But Molly, you wanted to say something? That's correct.
Just to reiterate what Jeff from Old Brooklyn had mentioned, our office is objecting, but we are more than happy to also meet with the property owner and, have a discussion to move forward with this. Thank you.
This is kind of difficult for us because he's asking for a simple lot split and we're not reviewing use. I mean, I leave it up to the commission members. I can't make a motion or a second. We have a motion and a second on
The lot split, Mr. Chairman. Sorry,
if there's a
Mr. Chairman.
there's a problem with someone in their use, someone needs to contact Tom Vanover and say someone's using, there's an illegal use being done. That's
Mr. Chairman, I think Director Collier wanted to make a comment.
Director.
I just
Ready?
wanted to affirm. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. The lot split decision does not directly impact the actual use piece of that. So I just wanted to affirm that your articulation is correct and that we shouldn't confuse the two, and that there's opportunity to have the discussion about what type of use goes here. So it's not like by default, the use is being approved because you're doing the lot split. That's how I see it.
Thanks. Thank you, Director. I mean, my personal problem with this whole thing is we're trying to hold up a lot split for something that might be illegal in the first place. We don't, I mean, obviously from you, we know that it sounds true. But if there's a problem with that, building and housing should be involved and not us. The lot split seems to make sense. He can sell one of the properties, and then if he wants to use it for a non-conforming use, he can either try to go for a variance, which he would have to go through the council too, or he wouldn't be allowed and they'd close him down from doing that use. I mean, if repair is not allowed there, repair is not allowed, and he shouldn't be able to repair things. So you're exactly correct. If it's a detriment for the neighborhood, there's another avenue to reach out and to make sure that it doesn't happen that way. So, but it's up to the council or the members, commission members. So August.
Well, there was a motion, there was a second.
Yes.
Then there was discuss. Then you called for raise their hand.
Yep.
So I'd say we vote. I mean,
okay.
Since we can discuss this, I want to say, I mean, my preference would be to table this if we could vote, but and have the councilman and the applicant meet and have them come back. I just want to say I'm going to vote no because I'd like them to come back. So my preference is to table.
And I'm in the same mindset as Lillian as far as tabling it, but I'll vote no as well because I'd like to see that conversation happen first.
I know, but we're conflating two different situations here. I don't think, legally, I don't think we have the right to do that, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think we do have the right to on a lot split because we have to evaluate the overall proposal. We do it all the time. So anyway, let's vote.
All right. But the reality of it is the use exists. Whether it's split or not is irrelevant.
So I'm going to call the question.
Sure,
Michael, call the roll, please.
Bowen,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
No.
Paul.
No.
Motion carries. The lot split has been approved.
Thank
So let's go to administrative approvals. Take a look. There's only one. Oh,
David,
hey, Charles. We'll go to, let's just do this administrative approval and we'll move right to yours. Can I get a motion?
I move approval.
Second, Stami.
Further discussion? Michael, call the roll.
Bowen,
Yes.
sorry, Diane. There's some interference there, but I believe I heard yes. August? Did not hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can. Okay. Curry,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Life.
Motion carries. We're going to move to Innovation Square Phase 1, seeking schematic approval. This is at 2260 East 105th Street. Who's here for this?
I need to recuse myself just because the foundation is considering investment in this project.
I must recuse myself as well, Mr. Chairman.
So we have 2 recusals. Thank you. Who's here to present this?
I need to recuse.
Krista, are you on mute?
I am. I'm here.
Okay. Are you the only one presenting?
I also have with me today Denise Van Leer, the Executive Director of Fairfax Renaissance Development Corporation. And I believe, may also be on the call our developers from McCormick, Baron Salazar. I'm not sure if they're actually on the call yet or not, but.
Okay. Can you, anyone speaking, can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer under the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Right. Thanks. Go ahead.
Okay, so here we are looking at, I just wanted to give everybody a little refresh and some background on the kind of greater neighborhood here, and to give you some context. A couple of years ago, we worked with Denise to present or to put together a master plan for this end of the Fairfax neighborhood. It is kind of bounded by Cedar Avenue to the north, Quebec to the south, East 105th Street Opportunity Corridor on the east, and then kind of tooths into the neighborhood till around East 97th, East 95th Street. And again, this was a couple of years ago. We put together this master plan, and this board had adopted it at the time. So I just kind of wanted to provide a refresher and provide the context to outline where we are putting our first phase in the ground. So on the screen, you can see a map in the center. We have outlined phase 1, that is the building we are discussing today. And to the southwest of it is Playwright Park, which has already been constructed. You can see some images in the lower right corner of your screen of some of the public art that is there, the green space, the community space that has been built in collaboration with Fairfax and the neighborhood. The western half of this neighborhood is all about infilling with single family homes where demolitions have taken place. Fairfax is working with Kinez and they are constructing those. I believe they are working on that currently. And the top right of your screen, you can kind of see how what the massing kind of looks like from that master plan, and the building in the center with the colored materials is the one we're talking about today. So if you go to the next slide, there's a little bit more context here. We have the Brooks Repository with the Cleveland Clinic Foundation to the northwest of our kind of larger study area. You are all very familiar with that, I'm sure. And then there's a mixed use development planned for the northeast corner of this neighborhood at Cedar and 105th. It'll have ground floor retail, likely a grocery store. We've provided some context images here for what that could look like, but that's not our project. So we're just kind of providing some context for all of the investment that is going on around this building and the framework that we are falling within. It's important to note that there's an Rta station immediately to the southeast at Quincy and East 105th. So the idea is really we're just trying to reinforce the walkability of this neighborhood and bring back some investment. Next slide. Here's an aerial to provide kind of some existing context of what it looks like today. Without some of that planned development, it's a little barren, but we're working very hard, and we have been coordinating with Fairfax and with the community to bring it back to life. So next slide. Here is, we're zooming into kind of our postage stamp of the site. So north is to your right. This is the existing conditions. You can see there is all the structures that were here previously have since been demolished. There is just some trees, some scrub brush. The two images are looking from East 105th towards kind of northwest at what will be the most prominent corner of this building. Currently, there's nothing there. And I did neglect to mention on the previous slide, but there is Hudson Avenue is a city project. They are extending that through. Currently, it exists east of 105th, but it will be extending west into the neighborhood. Yeah, you can see there, Hudson Avenue and Frank are proposed extensions that are working with city engineering now. So those are slated to come online in the next year or two. So on the next slide, we'll show you our proposed site plan. Again, north is to your right. That corner, we have pulled the building very close to the corner of 105th and Hudson. We have been working with Shannon at City Planning, and they're in the process, I think it's before council right now, to update the zoning for this part of the neighborhood. So that is nearing adoption. Does somebody have a question? Okay. So continuing, again, we are working to adopt some additional zoning that'll provide an urban form overlay in this part of the neighborhood to really beef up that frontage on East 105th, that opportunity corridor. And so you can see that we've got the building on Hudson and 105th. We have the parking pushed to the rear. It is an 82 unit apartment building. It is 4 stories on East 105th Street, and it is 3 stories on Hudson Avenue. Our goal is to kind of help provide that transition back into the neighborhood from higher density and transition down into lower density housing that already exists in parts of the neighborhood.
I just want to point out that Director Collier does have his hand raised. I didn't know if he had something he wanted to say at this point.
Actually, she's articulating this very well, so I'm going to continue to listen. So it's kind of music to my ears, her description, because the zoning that we're putting in place here actually encapsulates all of the principles. So keep going. It really sounds great.
Thank you, Director. So again, I mean, this really ties into like the overall context of the neighborhood that I kind of set up at the beginning, where we've had the Rta Station to the south, we've got the clinic to the north. You know, the idea is that we're reinforcing that walkability here, the ability to access transit. There is a bus route on East 105th Street. And so we're just working towards that. Right now, we are showing the 77 parking spaces for the parking lot, which puts us a little bit under 1-to-1. As I mentioned, it's an 82 unit building. The developer's goal is to acquire the remaining out parcel. FRDC is working, that lot is in foreclosure, so they are in the process of acquiring it, but we don't have it yet, so we have designed without it for the time being. If we do get that property in the future, we will acquire additional 17 spaces. Because this is just for a marketability standpoint for the building. From the next slide, you'll see that we've got our schematic landscape plan. The one thing I would like to point out is that we are no longer proposing trees on the tree lawn of East 105th Street. That is a utility zone. the trees just won't grow there. So we will be removing those in the next iteration of this plan. But as you can see, we intend to do a lot of dense landscaping. The developer has demonstrated in the past with other properties around the country the desire to have this look very soft, very welcoming, very well maintained. So that is the intent here with our landscaping approach, with a lot of trees and lush shrubbery and grasses. If you go to the next slide, you'll actually see a sample palette of what we are thinking for this area. All native species, salt tolerant where it's appropriate. And again, you know, it'll be maintained and irrigated. And then we are working through, we have not made final selections on furnishings, but this is an example of what we are looking at. They are high quality furnishings. Some of them mimic the fixtures and furnishings that are already present that is diagonal from here. So we're trying to create some cohesion in the neighborhood through design. Next slide. The next few slides are just our building floor plans, just to give you an idea of what is behind the windows that you are seeing. So the community room and fitness areas, leasing offices, some of those more public areas are on that prominent corner at Hudson and East 105th Street. The balance of those wings are residential units where you have living spaces and you know, living rooms kind of up on that front window to create that active presence, eyes on the street sort of thing. If you go on the next slide, you'll see our typical upper floors, again, more units. And then on the final floor is our, as I mentioned earlier, on the next slide is a partial fourth story that stacks the units up on 105th Street and allows for us to kind of, you know, peel the height of the building back as it turns into the neighborhood and provide a nice residence lounge and a roof deck that looks off to the west, with the potential for, you know, views towards downtown and over the broader neighborhood, looks over the park to the southwest that is kind of right over that corner. Next slide. We have a mix of studio, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units in the building. There's a special kind of larger unit that happens at the corner of the building, which will make sense when you look at the elevations in some of their upcoming slides. One thing we did want to note is that the developer is very, the one thing that's a value that's very important to them is universal design. So we are incorporating many of those features into the units themselves, as well as the greater building. Just wanted to kind of point that out. Next slide. Here you can see the two primary elevations. So we have East 105th Street on the bottom and Hudson on the top. And you can start to see how this architecture takes shape. We have what we're calling kind of like the jewel box up in the corner. You see that in the top right and the lower left. That is where that larger two-bedroom unit occurs. So to kind of create that extra space over that intersection. We have a mix of materials that include brick masonry, and those areas will have precast sills and headers. We have some corrugated metal panels, which are the white and the gray that you see. And then the variegated brown tones are actually kind of like a longboard siding. It's actually metal, but it has like a wood look to it. These are all very durable materials, really intended to last and maintain this kind of set this precedence, to set the tone as we embark on this first phase of the neighborhood redevelopment. Our primary entrance, you can see, is on kind of the lower left of the East 105th Street elevation. We will have a monument sign down there as well. And on the Hudson elevation, there is, You could see them a little bit in the site plan earlier, and now you can kind of see how those units that are on the ground floor on Hudson will present the street. They will have semi-private they'll be private patios, but they kind of provide that transparency to the street frontage, holding that line along the public right of way. And then you start to see the trellis structure that is over the plaza that's on the west end of the property, and that is going to be directly cat-a-corner from Playwright Park that's already constructed. So there is this synergy that is happening at that corner with like this public space, the trellis that continues the lines of the building, but also creates some openness and provides a space for the residents in the community. The next slide will show you the rear elevations. You'll see that we are using very similar materials because we are cognizant of the fact that while this is the back side of this building, it is going to be facing the front side of future phases in this development. Neighbors across the street. So we wanted to maintain that quality appearance all the way around the building. Next slide, please. And here you have kind of our winning view, if you will, of what this will look like when it all kind of comes together and those new streets are constructed. The new Hudson extension and how this all kind of comes together and presents itself. And I think that about does it.
Thank you.
My presentation.
Commission members?
And we have Director Collier again.
Freddie, go ahead.
Yeah, I won't be long. I just want to just emphasize the importance of this phase of the investments along 105th. Given that this is one of the first, if not the first, in the neighborhood section of Opportunity Corridor between 105th and Quincy and 105th and Cedar, this is really going to start to establish that gateway in the neighborhood coming out of the commercial district of Opportunity Corridor. We think that they have done a really good job with really trying to capture the context. And as you see the subsequent investments along this stretch, you're going to really feel a sense of enclosure, given the fact that you do have a roadway that's going to have a large volume of traffic on it coming into and out of University Circle. This is going to create a mid-rise scenario in this district. And we're really just happy and proud that everything is materializing as planned. And I think that's really important to note, and just want to say to the architect team and folks at Development Corporation, everyone who's working on this, that this is a really great step, and this is a really important step with establishing what Opportunity Corridor is really going to be, and changing the narrative that has surrounded this project for many years. Thanks.
Thank you, Freddie. Commission members?
I move approval. Downing.
Second, Paul.
Motion and second. Further discussion? I just want to say great start. Looking forward to seeing you come back. Michael, call the roll.
Bowen.
Yes.
Downing.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Slide. Slide.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, there it is. I heard him say that. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you all.
Thank you. So we go back to the bank building, new construction. This is at 4106 Pearl Road. Who's here for this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jeff Coslin with Visconsi Companies. I also have with me Jeff Deeds, who's our VP of Development.
Okay, Jeff and
Good morning.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer under the penalty of perjury?
Yes, I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you. Well, as soon as we get your PowerPoint presentation, you can start.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For those of you that may not have seen our submission package. This is the property at 4106 Pearl Road at Henninger. It's the northwest quadrant of that intersection. This is just south of Wildlife Way that drops down into the zoo's main entrance. Included in our submission package were some photos, both aerial and street level view, to show the existing conditions. The parcel is presently occupied by Eagle Auto Service. Okay, I'm not seeing it in this slides, but
yeah, I don't see the aerials or the photograph in this presentation. Sorry about that.
My apologies, but Eagle Auto Service is a very old building, and to be honest, I'm not sure they're actually doing auto repairs anymore. So it's a little poorly maintained, weeds overgrowing the site, that type of thing. We are looking to come in, demolish that building, and put in a 2,200 square foot bank on just under half an acre of property there. What's in front of you now is the site plan. It shows our building pulled up close to both streets. We're 5 foot off of each right-of-way line there. These site plans, as well as the building elevations that you'll see in a minute, are in conformance with the urban form overlay guidelines that govern this type of project. We have worked closely with planning staff, as well as the design review advisory committee and Old Brooklyn CDC to make refinements to the plan as we went through the process. And what you have in front of you is the result of those refinements, and we think it's a very good overall plan with the bank up tight to the street to allow for the pedestrian access, parking position to the rear west of the building. In addition, there is a ATM only drive-through. There's actually 2 ATMs, as you see on the northwest portion of the improved areas. So it'd be one way only heading west, and then cars would exit onto Henninger Road. So we have, as I said, worked closely with staff to get to this point. If you can move forward to the building elevations. As I mentioned, these are in conformance with the urban form overlay guidelines. We've got durable materials, aesthetically pleasing materials, ample amount of glass on the primary facades. And as you can see on the top left, that's the east elevation, the pedestrian entrance from Pearl Road. And then on the west elevation, just below that, you can see we have a secondary entrance for the customers that park to the rear of the building. We believe that the overall design is a very attractive addition to this area, and as I mentioned, we have worked closely with staff to upgrade it as we went along the process. There is some additional information in the package with regard to landscape design, site lighting, additional information as background for the Planning Commission members. We're here to ask for your approval and to answer any questions that the Commission members may have.
Commission members?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Call the roll, Michael?
Bowen,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Hall.
Motion carries. Good luck to you. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the board members.
Mr. Chairman, I did not finish the votes. I need to hear from Stami, Paul, and Councilmember Slight.
Thank you. Yes, for Stami.
And Councilman Slight? Thank you.
I could see it. I couldn't hear.
I know it's getting tough to hear on some of these.
Yep, thank you. Okay, well, it passed.
Thank you very much.
Super.
Thank you.
The next is Urban Community School Office Building. This is at 2050 West 47th Street. Who's here for this one?
Hi, Mr. Bowen. My name is Tom John, the president here at Urban. And I'm joined by John Haggerty, who's here at Urban, as well as our Director of Ops, Hannah Cohan from Knez, and Rick Siegfried from RSA Architects.
Okay, great. If everyone could raise your right hand. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, or you shall answer under the penalty of perjury?
I do.
I do.
So I want to make some very brief comments about, I'm sorry, Mr. Brown, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Just about the overall vision of the school. We were last in front of this group about 3 years ago. And so some quick updates, and then we'll talk about this specific project. So in 2018, we came to you with a plan to add campus partners that were mission aligned with Urban Community School. And we have since then opened the Urban Squash Cleveland building at the top right corner of this that you see, that opened in October of 18. The Metro Health Ohio City Health Center opened in June of last year, June of 20. And then the Early Childhood Center building in the middle of the campus there will open on July 26th. The projects today, so you are aware, are those two northernmost, roughly those two northernmost pink houses. There were homes there previously, which have since been demolished. The stretch of those 4 homes there is now vacant lots. And we are hoping to add 2 additional nonprofit education-driven partners. One is Refugee Response, which provides a lot of education to recently resettled refugees in the Cleveland area. And then also Facing History, which is an organization that helps provide professional development to teachers to teach students about issues of race and bigotry. So that's the 30,000-foot plan. And I'll let Mr. Siegfried talk additionally about the details of this project.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So we have potentially 4 small office buildings on the site. We're actually only asking for 2 of them today. We've done them in a residential style for a couple of reasons. It seems appropriate that based on the uses of these people that are going to be occupying them, you know, they're doing really good work, but it's wonderful. But we thought that a residential looking building would be a really nice transition from the campus over to the residential neighborhood to the right. So they sort of pick up a lot of the architectural features that are happening in the neighborhood. I don't know if you remember, we did the House of Champions a couple of years ago too, and it's along the same theme as that. So again, if we could just kind of go through the slides a little bit. I know you guys have had a long morning. We'll go as fast or as slow as you want to. Here's another more generic site plan before we had the actual shape of the building, but I think it gives you the context of what's going on and how this is going to work as a buffer transition between the more commercial buildings in the campus and the residential neighborhood to the east. Next slide, please. Front elevations, again, pretty typically residential. Nice porch, addresses the street. Relatively simple in architecture, but again, we think that the size and the scale is appropriate for what we're doing here. Go to the next page if you could. Material palette, it's a pretty simple material palette on purpose, so you can kind of see the burnt sienna roof and the espresso color on the paint and Adobe cream siding. Not sure I love the name of the color, but the color's great. And then just white trim for everything, white windows, white trim. Keep going a little bit. We can again just kind of click through them. So this is a set of construction drawings. I do want to mention one thing to the board, is that we would really like to get final approval rather than schematic approval to keep this moving. We got a little ahead of everything. You're basically looking at a set of construction drawings that when we add the MEP to it, we will be submitting to the city for building permits as soon as we get through all you all. So if you could see your way to do that, would be wonderful. But again, I know it's your purview. Just kind of look through the rest of the drawings and we'll answer any questions, receive any comments, or go on and look at the next one.
Mr. Chairman, we have Matt Moss with his hand raised.
Matt, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, to that last point, I just want to inform the commission that the same request was made at Near West Design Review, and the committee did recommend final approval with the condition that any signage or any final landscaping come back through the local committee so they could take a look at it, since that's customarily what we do with final design requests.
Thanks, Matt. And actually on our agenda it says final.
Okay, on my schematic, but
Okay, great.
we're all on the same page.
We are.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, to the applicant, I can't find my raised hand symbol on that thing. I apologize.
Okay, go ahead.
I see these are residential structures. I have some concern about how one who might have mobility challenges access these homes in the office. 'Cause I saw steps and a porch. Thank you.
Yeah. So great question. Accessibility comes in the back of the building, it's off the parking lot, where you'll see some dedicated handicap parking spaces. There are ramps back there, and then there's also a stairway. So there are ramps and accessible entries into each of these buildings. Like at 5 miles, I pointed out to you, if you look close along the back wall of the building, you'll see what we're talking about. You could go to the floor plan, sort of zoom in on that. It'll give you a better idea. There you go. Like, so where you see the second image from the left, you can see where the ramp is there. You come around the side of the building, you go up and turn at right angle and you're in.
Does that answer your question, August? Yeah, the only thing I would say, and I kind of agree with August. So now I'm in a wheelchair and I'm regulated to, just the back of the building. I can't go out the front to get some fresh air and move down the street. I have to go through the parking lot to get to the street edge. So, and I know that happens a lot in the city. It would be nice at some point to be able to do both.
It takes up a lot of space out there, and I hear exactly what you're saying. I really do. So yes, if you're limited in your mobility, you can get to the porch and enjoy that space. You just really got to go back through to get down to the street level. But other than putting,
I don't object to it. I'm just saying, under diversity of types, it would be great to be able to do that sometimes.
Sometimes, and we agreed. We studied it pretty hard, but
I appreciate it.
Yeah, the dedicated parking's in the back, and it's the easiest access into the building. So,
yeah.
Okay. Are you going to do these one at a time, or you want to look at them both?
Boy, you got a lot of detailed drawings in here.
Right. Yeah. Well, we're getting ready to build off of them. So.
Gotcha.
More than you typically see if you're the first submittal, but I guess we got a little confident.
That's okay.
Well, plus, the people at Kinez, they needed to be able to price these things and make sure we were in the right place. And they're not, we just kept running. Yeah, so they're in the back left corner of the top. We just look at the left side elevation. You can see that ramp, and you can see that our grade is actually sloping down toward the sidewalk. So it's also steeper in the front. We'd have more stairs. It'd be a longer ramp.
Yeah.
Make every attempt to pay attention to side elevations in the rear as well as the front and the back. So we get 360-degree architecture that fits in the neighborhood and kind of creates its own little kind of a subzone there. And we're anxious to get moving.
On this, and this is just a question to the
Go ahead,
applicant.
August.
I mean, obviously you chose to make these homes, and obviously you've created, I believe, some challenges, because right now you have these separate homes, and which are banks of different offices. So if, again, I'm going back to, if I'm physically challenged, I have to go out the back, go down a ramp, traverse across, go back up another ramp. You know, if I have to go to another office, again, I'm just trying to, you created this situation. It's not like you inherited it. So I'm just pointing that out only because I think in this day and age of trying to be inclusive, we have to think about folks of all capabilities.
Right. And
So
we certainly appreciate your comments and understand it. The functions of these buildings are such that it would be relatively unusual for someone to be going from one to the other because they're such, again, it's really good work, but they're pretty diverse tasks that are happening in each one of them. And it was an effort to create that environment and that characteristic on the street on 47th that drove us to the residential style buildings.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Why don't you just create one continuous veranda and be done with it?
We have to get into some code issues with our type 5B construction.
All right, just
Building
again,
gets
I'm done. I'm not asking you to change. I'm pointing out some points, some obvious things in my head. Thank you.
Absolutely appreciate your comments.
Mr. Chairman, we have Councilman McCormick.
Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate your patience here. I'm between two screens today. We've got budget hearings, but this was important enough for me to butt in, so I appreciate you allowing me just a few seconds. Chair, I just speak today to thank the Commission for hearing this and to provide my full, unwavering support for the UCS master plan, as well as these 4 houses that you're looking in front of you today. First and foremost, Mr. Chair, there is a new Girl Scout troop starting at UCS. So anyone who has not gotten their cookies yet, they are a brand new scout. Please buy from them. I'm sure President Gill can provide that information for you. So that's just a plug for the new scout and the cookies that you can buy from them. But beyond that, Mr. Chair, this is another step in the thoughtful build out of this campus that, as we all know, in the moment when we're really focusing on equity and access, this institution walks the walk on equitable access to education in our community, and intentionally for years has focused on that. Right, this is not a new space that they're operating in. So another item specifically on this proposal, Mr. Chair, was important to the neighborhood. And I appreciate Urban Community Schools, direct interaction and attention paid to the neighborhood feedback that these streets function in a residential appearing way. And I think that they've done a good job of achieving the needs for institutional use while maintaining the more residential character of this street within the neighborhood. So I appreciate them balancing those two principles. But again, Mr. Chair, I can't say enough good things about the leadership of UCS, our families, our kids, and the good work that they're doing in our community. There's been a lot of moving parts into this campus master plan and a lot of blood and sweat that's gone through it. And so, obviously this is made possible by all the passionate people that support the school, Kinez included, who have done a great job partnering. So again, thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the Commission for hearing this today. And I fully support the good work that UCS is doing and the physical buildings that allow them to do that good work, Mr. Chairman. And go out and buy those cookies, President Gill. You'll have to tell them how to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Commission members? And this is seeking final approval for building 1.
I move approval. Downing.
I'll second.
We have a motion, second. Further discussion? Michael, call the roll, please.
Bowen.
Yes.
Downing. Fluker.
Yes.
Curry.
Yes.
Sorry, Scott, I couldn't hear you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Now this is for the Urban Community School office building number 2. seeking final approval.
I move approval, Downing.
Second, Floyd.
Sorry, we haven't seen that presentation yet, commissioners. Had indicated that these 4 buildings are building 1, I thought. Well, maybe, okay, but there's another presentation for the building 2 then.
Yeah.
Oh, because the presentation showed 2 buildings in it.
Yeah.
Right, but I believe there's another presentation following this one that gives the details on that building.
Right, and for the record, we should probably look at it. Oh, we won't go long, we won't spend a lot of time.
Don't spend a lot of time.
All right.
Stop you.
Okay, Michael, if you could flip through to the next presentation, and I think we just kind of need to, we'll see it.
Someone needs better internet access.
Yeah, I would do it if I could.
I'm sorry, was I supposed to change the slide?
Yes, please.
Yeah, move through, yeah. Like if you could, yeah. You may have it loaded as a separate PDF.
That's all I have.
There it is right there. That's building number 2, and then the presentation follows.
Gotcha.
Okay, so same site information obviously is applicable, same context.
Yeah, this is the building just to the south.
Right, this is the refugee response. So, you know, same residential field, different color, still got the porch, the interaction with the street. There's our color palette again. We're keeping it pretty clean and simple. This one, so just so in case you know what you're looking at, in building 2, you'll see the ramp. This one isn't quite as far out of the ground, so the ramp is able to be shorter and the location of the back door moved. But there's a stairway down to the basement. That's what that is on the left side. That's because they have a lot of garden implements and such that are going in and out of the building, and we don't want to take them through the front door. So that's a basement stairway there. Okay, you can just kind of clip through them, I guess. Anybody has any questions far up as we go? Probably way more than you wanted to know about the building, right?
Okay, I move to approve building cluster number 2 as presented.
Second, Paul.
Motion second, further discussion? Roll, Michael?
Bowen.
Yes.
Downing.
Yes.
Luker. Yes. Curry.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Aye.
Motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks, everybody. Be well.
Thank you. Looking forward to those cookies.
All right.
East Design Review. This is for the Woodland Branch Library, Central Distribution Facility, new construction. This is at 5802 Woodland Avenue. This is seeking final approval here. Who's here for this?
Mr. Chairman, Before you begin, this is Diane Downing. I'm going to abstain. My husband, Tom Corrigan, is on the board of the library. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is Dan Pollock with Boswick Design.
Hey, Dan.
Hey, how are you?
Is there anyone else besides you?
We have others on the call. I will be doing the presentation, though. We have Kat Sonhalter from the library and others from the team.
Can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer under the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Great. Go ahead.
Great. So last time we presented, we received conceptual from East Design. We came here and the comment was made, you guys didn't need to see us until final. We did go back to East Design review with our schematic and we got final approval. So we go for schematic and we get something else, which is nice on that time. I think the reason we got final is because we were able to answer their questions and move forward accordingly. And this presentation is formulated as such that it kind of highlights the updates and the big picture of the buildings. If we want to look at any site context, that's towards the back, and we can definitely go and review that if needed. So next slide, please. And next slide, please. So this is our landscape plan. On the left or west, we have the existing branch. To the north is Woodland. To the south is Griswold. To the west is 55th. And so we're taking that existing Woodland branch library and the existing maintenance garage and other small facility uses of CPL and turning that into the CDF or central distribution facility. To the right of that, we have our new Woodland branch. It's a 10,000 square foot new library. And then around here, we have the additional plaza and new parking. We discussed last time, we pulled all of those curb cuts off of Woodland. There's currently 3 of them with kind of 3 parking lots. I think 2 are connected. And we're bringing that traffic off of 61st and Griswold. We do have 2 service drives to the CDF in the back. The one on the right or the east is the existing one, and the one on the west will be used more for the book intake and send out for the library. So the building will function and receive all kind of new materials, existing materials in and out, and act as that central kind of part of distribution for all of CPL. We were able to answer a lot of East Design's questions with lighting, bike rack locations. We added and changed our pedestrian path layout from last time. It's more consistent with the branch's geometry. We also were able to add what we're calling the red carpet. It's a nice entry path that will help signify entry. Again, we'll have people arriving from the north and south, so tying that into one entrance was important through the building and through the landscape. Yeah, so we've updated all of that. We could probably go next slide and get a little zoomed in view. So there's that red carpet, and we'll go through some of what's on the site next, but we really wanted to create a space that was accessible to the community. There aren't really a lot of parks in this neighborhood. So this can be used in conjunction with the new branch. It can be used for the CDF staff. And we really wanted to activate it to create more of a safe environment and neighborhood. The branch will also use this with the community plaza and community room and have events that spill out into that plaza. Next slide, please. So here's some of the plantings we're proposing and benches. On the top right, and I'm very excited about this glow aggregate at the red carpet. So this will be a aggregate mixed in with the concrete. And it'll really provide we think a cool and very distinct entry to the building that will be a positive for the neighborhood. That entry will have access to book lockers to patrons. So we want that to be well lit at night, and it has direct vision from Woodland. We also have little things like solar power stations, and the concrete benches as well as picnic tables for the staff and neighborhood. Next page, please. So this is our site lighting. The paths on this image, to be honest, we're not updated to the paths we're showing on that plan, but the concept stays the same. We have taller lighting out in the parking areas, and then we have mostly pole lights. I believe they're 12 feet within the rest of the area. That height we're told by our landscape architect will help with the plantings when they're planted and as they mature to provide nice safe lighting throughout this plaza. Next page, please. So this is just a floor plan of that CDF. Again, there's a lot of office function and then kind of the shipping and receiving function to the south. Next page. Again, this building's existing. We are adding that new dock on that top elevation to the left side of it. It'll kind of match the one that's currently there to the right. Otherwise, we are infilling on, we go to the next slide. We are infilling the existing garage doors on that top elevation with a new storefront system to match the rest of the building and create a nice views in and out and also light from that space for the staff and for the people on that site. We can go to the next slide. And next slide. So this is a view into that existing. So kind of in the center of that is actually a small infill addition to the building. And then as that wraps, we're looking to carry some of that from that existing 50s branch and create some unity on the site. We'll be cleaning and tuck pointing certain parts of the brick and cleaning up the aesthetic overall. We think this landscape will provide a nice amount of color to that kind of existing beige tone building. Next slide. So this is the branch floor plan. It's pretty simple in a lot of ways. We've tried to provide as much space for patrons and for education, reading, children's activities, adult educational opportunities, as well as the main book stack areas. We also have meeting rooms to the right, which can be used for different reasons, whether study rooms or meetings of families and different things. The large community room to the bottom left will be accessible day and night and available to be reserved by the community as well. Next slide, please.
Mr. Chairman, just to point out, Director Collier has his hand raised. I don't know if you want to make a comment immediately.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment really quick with respect to that interior space. If you go back to that interior space, it's outdoor space, but it's within the interior area of the building. I don't know what the budget is. Given that space is intended to be leveraged or utilized, could there be something more interesting done with that sort of courtyard space there, rather than it just being a series of kind of walkways to get you from one door to the next, and it's very flat? And I'm just curious, has any thought been given to that? If you can go back to the image, because I think it will help solidify what I'm saying here.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and this image probably doesn't do justice to the full landscape plan. So try to keep this one in your head, and let's go back to, it might have been the 4th or 5th slide of the presentation. So if we could keep going back. Right here, yeah. So we are infilling that area with a grove of trees to create something nice in this area. We also have picnic tables, and you can kind of see it under the trees. There's a story circle. So our intent here is again, anyone can use this space, but it gives a nice, comfortable shaded area away from the street for the library to take advantage of a children's story area, and also potential other outdoor learning opportunities in that space. We do have in the center, off of that red carpet, it's labeled as the speaker's bench. So the idea is we would put presentations and things out front and center to the community. These other areas would be available to sit and observe those things and take some respite from the sun on a bright day, and also kind of be protected in that area. I don't know if I answered your question fully there, but
Freddie, did that answer your question?
Yes, that's fair.
Hey, and I saw the councilwoman, she did text me in support, but Councilwoman Cleveland, did you want to say something? I don't hear her, so go ahead with the presentation.
Thank you. If we could go back to, I think it was the branch plan we were on. Or sorry, elevation. So we'll get into more of this. We have, I think, 5 updated renderings that we didn't have last time. The elevations are pretty simple. We wanted a consistent material. We wanted to create a campus feel, not necessarily through materials, but through spaces. The existing neighborhood has we have a beige brick on our building. There's a dark brown brick across the street. The police station has something in between. We wanted to have something new and kind of pop out, but we also wanted it to be, it's kind of small, so we didn't want to over design the materials on the building, and I'll explain that further on the next slides. So if you go to the next one, and then the next one, and then the next slide. So this is our color palette, and what I'm showing here on the left is a Trespa panel that will be used in conjunction with an orange or terracotta type mullion. The other mullions will match the Trespa color, and that'll become more apparent when we go to those views. On the right is the interior palette, and I know that's not really what we're tasked to bring here. However, our building functions as such that we want to really bring people in, and while we know the glass will have a small amount of reflectivity to it and won't pop those colors as much as maybe anyone would like, it will still be a clear glass, and the colors we're showing on the interior are important to our exterior design and the ability to bring people into the library, because that's really our ultimate goal. Next slide. So this is a view heading east down Woodland. We tried to show most of the sides of our building, and we'll see those in additional renderings. We really don't have a back to the building. It is surrounded by views on all sides. So we tried to keep this consistent Trespa panel wrapping it. The kind of design concept behind that is this panel that wraps it, keeps it really simple. The material has a little bit of shine and matte to it, so as you experience that down the street, we think it'll have a little bit of a glimmer to it, which will help make it pop. But we also made a consistent color choice and kept it simple because we do want the building to be timeless. We also want to draw people in, so as this material wraps the building, we kind of slice it. We've created this frame that really wants to highlight the inside of the building. We want to highlight the activity to be inside that building. We have a lot of bright colors inside the building, which we think is important for the neighborhood and to draw people in. And our number one goal is to get people in here reading and learning and having a nice safe space to go. A lot of children.
We have Director Collier again. Sorry.
Director.
Yes, with you going down Woodland, and the transparency is great. The question with regard to branding, the Cleveland Public Library logo or brand, where's that along the streetscape? Because obviously this corridor is extremely prominent and it gets a lot of visibility. So just with respect to the signage or the branding, because I'm looking at that wall in between the windows there, between the 2 trees, and I'm just wondering if the Cleveland Public Library has a logo or brand that could be lit or have something that's prominent along this facade somehow, or has that been thought of?
That's a great question. So the library has just gone through kind of an entire rebranding effort. They have a new logo, and we have Kath Sonhalter, who is the project manager at CPL with us. So Kath, if you'd like to add to that, you can.
Yeah, this is Kath here. Morning, everyone. As Dan shared, we have just undergone a rebranding effort of the last several months, and it is our intention to identify this building clearly as a CPL property, as the Woodland branch specifically, but we're not bringing that to you here because that is still under development. As you can see, there are many opportunities, for signage, whether it's signage in the landscape or mounted to the building or projected onto the building with lighting is things that we are still developing.
Thank you, Kath. And yeah, we will definitely come back with the signage package. We are not looking for approval on signage today.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you. So again, we really want to create that frame and highlight what's going on in the building. And I think we could go to the next slide. So this just gives a kind of zoomed in view of what we were just looking at to highlight the vibrancy and activity that'll take place inside. And it shows kind of that it's a Trespa oblique panel that creates that kind of matte and gloss finish along it. We also have a small edge of I think a number 8 limestones in front to create kind of a platform and spot for the building to sit when it touches the grass. So you're very intentional in that. And this angle will help draw people around to the entry. And we've also brought it up pretty close to sit on that setback from the site. So we wanted it to have that street presence, so people see it as they're driving to and from and past this building. Next slide. So this is a view more coming down 59th and then looking towards that entrance. You can see the crosswalk there that currently exists. Again, really highlighting that inside and outside look. We feel the vibrancy of the site plantings, which are of course muted in our view here, but will be much brighter when they're planted. As well as the vibrancy of the interior color, which we'll especially see at night, but we feel like with our glass choice, we'll still be able to see that during the day. Next slide, please. This is an interior view looking out, again, showing some of the colors we're using and some of the vibrancy that we'll get inside of there. This is looking to that darker brown brick building across the street. Next slide, please. So this is our approach from the parking and from the south. We've created this kind of portal next to the community room, which is a really important aspect. Here you can see some of that interior coming to the exterior on that kind of teal bluish green panel. So that was another reason we wanted to show that interior palette, because we do bring that color to the outside. Again, you can see this Trespa panel kind of consistent in its wrap and verticality. And then when it's cut back, something different happens. In this case, it kind of sets in that jewel of the community room space that we really want to be on display and focus for the site. To the west, you can see that new kind of cut-in entry to the CDF there. It's an existing building, but that'll be a new entry for staff. Next slide, please. And this is just, again, a rotated view as you come up to that entrance. And again, another example of that color kind of coming from the interior to the exterior. And I think we'll take a look at the next slide. I think that was more of the background info. Yeah, you could go back to the slide before, please. So I'll leave it here, and I thank you for your review and consideration. We are very excited about this project and looking to keep moving it forward. Again, we're seeking final approval, and if you did want to see any of the site stuff or go over that, we have that after this. We did review that last time, so if there's any questions or comments, thank you very much for your consideration.
This is Lillian. I said this before. I really like the design a lot. It's beautiful, and I thank you. And so I move for final approval.
Thank you.
I second Stommy.
Further discussion. I just wanted to reiterate what I said before. The Councilwoman texted me and she's in full support of the project. I think it's very attractive. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Councilwoman, go ahead.
Thank you, thank you. I'm going back and forth between I just want to emphasize my strong support for this project. I think it's wonderful. I love the design, and I love the impact that it's going to have on the community with the community space, as well as the impact it's going to have on Woodland, which I think Director Collier mentioned is a very heavily traveled street in not just my community, but in the city of Cleveland. A lot of people travel from the east and east suburbs to get downtown by way of Woodland. So I just wanted to make sure to state on the record that I fully support this project, and I think it will be great for the community.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Any other comments? Michael, call the roll, please.
Bowen.
Yes.
Fluker.
Yes.
Curry.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Slight. I'm sorry, Councilman, I didn't hear you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
The next is Park Place Townhomes, new construction, seeking schematic approval. This is on West 73rd Street. Who's here for this?
Hi, it's Jeff Foster from Pato Architects. I think Mike Maroos will be with us as well.
Can you start without him?
I can.
All right. Can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer under the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Go ahead.
Okay, great. This is a project at the Battery Park development. I believe you saw this a couple years back for a 5-story condo project that was planned. The development team has since changed directions on this, and we're looking at 25 townhouse units on this site. There's Mike. I'm gonna let Mike do a little intro.
Yeah, can you guys hear me? I'm sorry about that.
Yes, we can.
I'm going to have to swear you in if you don't mind.
Yes.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer under the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you everyone for taking the time today. You know, it's amazing to think back. In 2004, a lot of people thought we were crazy about buying the land over there at Battery Park, the old Eveready battery buildings. And I think all of us over the last 17 years have seen such a transformation to the community over there. And, you know, I guess it goes back 17 years. And I just want to thank everyone because it was big commitment by the city, Detroit Sherway, our CDC. And it took everyone to kind of get there. The people that invested in our community early on, and it's really been an amazing run. We went through a subprime crisis. Now we're going through a pandemic, but Battery Park never lost its momentum. And today is an exciting day because we're really excited about putting this project out there, and our sales team is chomping at the bit. But this is officially the last parcel of the original Battery Park. And this will close out the vision that we had back in 2004. So we want to say we appreciate everyone because all of you had a part in this over the years, and we're excited to close this chapter and hopefully start more.
Thanks, Mike.
So to continue on with the design, to pony off of what Mike had just mentioned about the success of Battery Park, when we approached this architecturally, the couple things that we wanted to propagate with this was one, just the interactions of the buildings with the neighborhood. So as we divided the site, it was important for us to continue that neighborhood feel. We think that's one of the reasons that Battery Park is so successful. Second thing is the mixture of architecture. I applaud their development team for mixing the designs, mixing the designers. And I think the result of that has created an interesting tapestry of the neighborhood for even though there's a common modern theme throughout, each one's interpreted a little bit differently and uses materials a little bit differently. So those are a couple major themes that as we approach this design that were super important to us. So walking through what you've got before you in the presentation, the cover sheet here shows, obviously, the context. As Mike mentioned, this is the last parcel within Battery Park. It's got townhouses on 3 sides, and then there's the avenue being constructed across 73rd Street. 73rd Street is the underpass, so it connects over to Edgewater Park. So as you make that drive southbound on 73rd, it has a bit of a bend to it. But you can see from our bird's eye rendering here that we positioned these units up close and they're tall. We intentionally made them tall. We intentionally gave them a vertical feel so that as you make that trip up 73rd, this really harkens as a gateway and as a major entrance into Battery Park. So if you could flip the slide, please. Looking at us, giving us some bearings. North is up on this page, Lake being up. We've got this divided into buildings A through D. So we'll start along 73rd Street where we have the unit mix here is 1,500 square foot and 1,700 square foot units. We've got those designated as A and B. So I mentioned 25 total units. Of that mix, 14 are the larger 1,700 square foot size and 11 of them are the smaller 1,500 square foot size. But hearkening off that neighborhood feel, you can see from the site plan that we intentionally brought these townhouses up to the right-of-way line using the overlay principles that are in the mixed-use overlay or the townhouse overlay ordinance for the zoning code, making that connection with front porches for each of these units, and those elements then coming right up to the sidewalk line. We've got a pretty robust landscape plan that lists around all the way around the perimeter of the buildings. But in turn, it is a square site. So we took the approach of, how can we engage, in particular, buildings A and B into a very comfortable feel with that, maintaining that neighborhood street section. So even though we don't have a street between buildings A and B, we created a courtyard, a muse of sorts that has a very lushly landscaped and a kind of a meandering walk down through, so that those units really have a very intimate relationship with each other and a very comfortable relationship to the site. We have 2 pathways through for vehicular traffic. We're calling it Park Place Court, and then we have another driveway through the site, which we don't really have a name for. But those connect through, and they also maintain those same principles of the townhouse overlay, which is a narrower 18-foot access drive. And along each of those is a pedestrian access way. So you can walk down Father Frascati, which is our southern border of this particular development, and you'll see there's a sidewalk that runs up behind buildings D, connects through that landscape muse, and then exits up at Catlin Court to the north end. Flipping back to the next slide. I mentioned the landscape plan, and I won't really go through this in detail. Even though we're here for a kind of a schematic review, some of the elements of the design are pretty far advanced. So as you'll see, the landscape plan is pretty developed. Next slide. Lots of detail. Next slide. You can see some more detail on that interior landscape court. Along 74th Street, we did specifically make that, we're switching a connection that's currently there. So currently, if you're working from 74th Street into the current site, you have on-street parking, which is existing. Then you go to a tree lawn, and then you go to a sidewalk. Well, we've reversed that and brought the sidewalk out to the edge of the parallel parking spaces and specifically put our landscaping along the sides of those buildings along 74th. So I wanted to point that out, and it becomes very apparent when we get to the renderings at the end of the packet. Next slide. Our townhouse units, we have two typical units with a couple variations to it. This would be our larger 1,700 square foot unit. Each have rooftop decks, 2-bedroom units. Next slide. Our smaller unit, which is the 1,500 square foot unit, same rooftop decks, but we also have the front porches you'll notice on these, 3-story units. Next slide. There's a series of elevations here, 2-dimensional elevations that show how the facades are broken down. And architecturally, we continued with some of the variety that's throughout the neighborhood. I'm going to go ahead to the renderings. So if you want to slip ahead to so you get to some pretty pictures. There we go. So this shows sort of I mentioned that tapestry of materials that's throughout the neighborhood. In the upper left-hand corner is our palette of materials. We've got 2 different bricks. These are both, we have a reddish brick and then an orangish tan brick. So each of these is a wire cut, so it's got a nice soft feel to it. We think that fits in nicely with the surrounding areas. We wanted to draw attention to the architecture, but not too much attention, so that as you look at the elevation facing, this is building D in the largest view on the right, that's what faces 73rd. So as you drive southbound, coming under the railroad tracks and sort of heading uphill, you have a very prominent view of the the stair towers as you come up and with the porches down below. We integrated a sloped roof element, so you'll notice that we've got a variation on the facades between sort of an L-shaped rectangular front and also a front that uses a sloped roof at the top. That was meant to give some drama to the ends of these buildings and give a little dynamicism to the form. That roof is a galvalume material, so it have a little bit of sparkle to it, but as it weathers, it'll weather to a nice even gray. The rest of our palette uses a 7/8 inch exposed fastener metal panel in a dove gray color, kind of working from left to right. We have some accent panels between some of our windows of a melamine chronospan panel, and there's 2 different colors for that. One being a color to match the windows, which is a terratone color, and then the other being a cream, sort of a buff color, which we're using to emphasize some of the verticality of the building. Our back sides and our sides of the building facing in towards the interior courts are a vinyl siding. That's an Allura product, and we've got the color listed on there. And at each of the front doors, we've got some small canopy elements just to keep your head dry as you're entering in and out of the units. And those have a variation of color on them, alternating between a brick red and that same terratone color. So you can see from our other 2 views that we have here, one in the lower right-hand corner is facing south. That's our building C. So that faces Father Frascati, the southern edge of our property. We're alternating the brick colors on that. So you have a red brick and the tan brick mixing to get some variety along the streetscape. Those use that same roof, sloped roof element facing to the south. And then the view in the lower left-hand corner is up that pedestrian court between the interior of buildings A and B. So you can see how that rectangular element turns the corner and really makes a nice 3-dimensional form to each of these buildings. So that's a tour through our development. And Mike, is there anything else you wanted to add?
I think we've created a townhome site here that takes from a lot of the existing and kind of brings a new flavor with the stair tower coming up, and we're definitely excited about the look. We've definitely put it out there with our sales team. They're very excited to get this out there, and I think we're just excited to get this out and get this built.
Thank you. Commission members?
I move approval, Downing.
Second, Curry, and Demolition. Here.
Failed miserably, but could I
We have
just a quick point of clarification?
Go ahead.
I don't know if this might be a question for Adam Davenport. I don't know if he's on, but in design review committee notes, one question. I curious, is that a reference to the trees that are being displayed that are on the tree lawn in the public right of way?
Adam, are you on the line?
I am, but I only heard maybe a quarter of that. Sorry,
So
Councilman.
why don't you go over the design review comment, and then that'll answer it.
Oh, okay. So we just had a few comments related to the project at design review last Wednesday. One was landscaping on 73rd. That was suggested in the form of kind of vertical columnar trees. We felt that breaking up the space along 73rd would continue the other landscaping that was put in there as part of the ODOT tunnel project, right, for the vehicular underpass right there. The other comments were more requests for items to see at the final approval level. Some site sections relating to the other properties nearby and the kind of the height and scale, and some color sections or color recommendations to reevaluate. Some on the panels between the windows and then the red awnings themselves. And then a last request to enhance the corner unit at 73rd and Father Frascati, making it more of a prominent feature and rounding the corner as you come, north towards the lakefront.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank you,
Adam.
Adam.
What I want to remind the committee, and I'm not opposed to the motion, but the right-of-way and tree lawn trees are controlled by the city of Cleveland, and the developer has no exact ability to meet that requirement. And Director, I think that it would be valuable, and I'll make this request, if the Urban Forestry Division can come before Planning Commission and maybe give a special presentation so we can better advise on this part of landscaping plans in the future. I agree with the intent of it. I just don't think that it's something we can necessarily put on the developer because those would be situations.
Thank you, Councilman. Freddie, you have any comment?
Yeah, I hear exactly what the councilman is saying and agree. And just FYI, with respect to tree canopy and nature, I think that is something that the actual planning commission needs to hear about with respect to how we're analyzing projects moving forward. We actually had some dialogue at our citywide design review meeting about this. So I agree with the councilman's suggestion. Thanks.
Thank you. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I think Lily seconded, didn't she?
Maybe.
That was the second.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. Do we have a motion second? Any more discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Bowen,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Luker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
say it again.
I saw his face, it froze.
Yeah.
Charles?
Yes, I'm.
Okay. I heard
Oh, I
that.
heard him. He said,
Thank you.
all right, thank you. Good luck, Mike.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good day and a nice weekend.
You too.
The last on our agenda is Buckeye Plaza freestanding sign seeking final approval. So Mark is doing this? Who's here for this one?
Mark, are
Hello?
you doing this one?
I remember this.
406 miles of our bike network are all-purpose trails. It's the most common facility type across the 5 counties. Active all-purpose trails, meaning they're currently under construction. They have some type of funding, they're in design, for construction, an additional 40 miles.
Marka? I think we're having some
Might
technical
need to put
difficulties.
yes.
Hi, this is Marka, I'm on.
Okay.
Yeah, I was here, I'm actually in this meeting in NOACA's meeting, so.
Okay.
Come up so quickly. Okay,
Multitasking.
yes, trying to. Not very well, obviously.
Okay, go ahead.
Did you already start to explain it, Fred?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, we recognize it, obviously.
Yes, yes. So this sign, of course, you've seen it before. It's coming back, and the reason is because they wanted to include the key bank sign. They did not increase the sign area, but they did increase the height of the sign. It was initially 23 feet. It's now 25 feet. And the additional 2 feet is to accommodate the logo at the center. And then just the additional sign for key bank. And so it just has to come back just for approval of that additional sign.
All right, looks fine to me. Commission members?
I move to approve as presented.
I second. Curry.
Okay, thanks, Lillian. We have a motion second, further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Bowen,
Yes.
Diane, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Luker,
Yes.
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 Slife. Councilman, are you there?
He might have dropped off.
He may not be there. Okay.
All right, motion carries out. Great job, Marka. You hammered that one home.
Thanks.
See him.
I didn't hear you. What'd you say?
You hammered that one home, doing double duty.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, guys. Director, do you have a report or?
Just another comment really quick just about the upcoming symposium, and just wanted to make sure that everybody has received the information and hopefully registered. Diane, I know we have some issues getting you the information, but you should have received it now. Is that correct?
Yes, I have. Thank you.
Awesome. That's great. Okay. And the other thing I want to mention, this effort, and I'm going to be candid when I say this, regardless of how things shake out this year from a political perspective, we all know and understand what our role is as a planning commission. And the work that we're doing here with the symposium and the preparation that we're going to be taking to update our comp plan is something that we're required by charter to do. Something that we need to always make sure that we're focusing on regardless of the political climate that we're in. So I just want to emphasize to the commission the obligation that we have to make sure that we are thinking and positioning the city for the future, and that this effort that we're putting together is a precursor to our comprehensive plan update, which we all know the importance of, and it's needed. And I'm sure Ms. Curry can recall, who actually was responsible for my hiring back in the day when we began the process of the Connecting Cleveland 2020 citywide plan. So I just want to emphasize that, and that's all I have for today. We did have our, one more thing, we did have our citywide design review meeting, which was very successful. We had over 113 participants in that meeting. And I highlight that because it just signifies the commitment and importance of design review and that it is still a very viable civic function in the city of Cleveland. And that's all I have.
Hey, Freddie, I have one thing I just wanted to raise. I wonder if you and David might work again with the mayor's office to try to seat the empty slot, or at least one or two of the alternate positions. We have had so many instances where we have had quorum issues because of recusal, and it's really uncomfortable situation for the commission members. And it's gone on a little too long for me, even though we had a big situation before. And I think it really warrants a very special meeting to talk about this in a way that is, I just need to think it's elevated again, and it shouldn't be because there's a crisis, but because it's our responsibility as a commission and yours. And I know we've talked about this, but I cannot express enough how difficult this has become.
Well, it's a great comment. Earlier this week, we had budget hearings, and Freddie and I were on it. I didn't have anything to say during the budget hearings, but Freddie did. And that was one of the comments about the commission and filling the seats. So, yeah, that's back on the burner. I guess.
Whose comment was it? I mean, meaning like, this is not rocket science, right? So a lot of names have come up. So, and we're, I'm not asking for every seat, but can we at least have an alternate? So we can see these things coming. We saw one today. I texted you, David, because I saw it with Innovation Square. And had Charles not been able to make it, they would have been stuck. So it's a problem.
No, we get it, Lillian. It's a great comment. So we'll elevate it again. I guess recently I haven't been pushing it, but I can push it again.
And I hear you loud and clear. And it's not by virtue of the lack of pushing it. Again, there has to be decisions made, but I agree that the drum needs to be beat even more. So yes, thank you.
And I'd just like to say to the commission members, Freddie did a great job with budget hearings, by the way. And I think the design review was so popular, I couldn't get on in the beginning. So finally I got on, and it was really nice to hear the tail end of it.
Good to hear. Good job, Fred.
Everyone have a good weekend.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, thanks.